Yo, can everybody hear me? Yes, sir. The revamp. I like that name, brother. I like that name. So we'll wait, maybe a couple more minutes and then we'll get right into it. All right, we're gonna probably get started in about 1, 2 minutes, and then we're gonna get it rocking. And just before we get started, can everybody hear me? Everybody loud and clear? All right, let's get started. So first, thanks everybody for joining me tonight. This is we're going to try to do this every couple of weeks or so, maybe even more, maybe once a week, depending on what we got to have in terms of just people with questions, people who have a lot of concern with what they're eating, what they're putting in their body, because as we know, health is everything. Health is wealth. So tonight we're going to just kind of go over two topics. I just kind of wanted to keep it very simple, high level. I encourage everybody to continue to do research. That's what I do. I went through my PhD program. It was one of those learning how to research, really learning how to study, learning how to dig up facts, looking at trends and analysis, looking at linear regression, those things like that to really kind of study, because you can read an article and anybody can write an article nowadays, whether it's news article in a magazine, and that does not make it correct. So the important thing is I just want to kind of dispel a lot of information that's out there now, specifically about topics, because I know it can be very confusing to somebody who really doesn't know a lot about nutrition, who doesn't know a lot about health, who doesn't know a lot about overall wellness. I think it's important as a health coach, to really kind of divulge into the specifics of certain aspects that people get confused about. And that's just because a lot of misinformation and a lot of things that are fed to you by the media are incorrect. They've got one research or one study that they've done, and they want to go ahead and not even have any quantifiable data and then tell you this is the way it is. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about the keto diet, and we're going to talk about calorie in versus calorie out. So the first thing that I want to talk about tonight, before we can even really talk about keto, is talking about macronutrients. You're going to hear this all the time: macronutrients, macronutrients. What are they? Macronutrients are only three things. So they are carbs, which are sugar, they are your fats, which are your lipids, and then they are your protein. And all of those give you energy from calories. So when you're eating different things, you're looking for the nutritional value usually of those three things, which are fats, carbs, and protein. So when you hear the big word macronutrients, that's the only thing that it means is those three things that give us energy from our calorie source. So that's number one. So when we're talking about keto diet, what we're talking about a diet that's high in fat. It also has a significant amount of protein and it's very, very low in carbohydrates. So once again, that's having a lot of fat, a pretty decent amount of protein, and very, very low carbs. That actually is what is that's a keto diet. So when it comes to turning to keto, what keto originally used for, believe it or not, was to aid children who were having refractive epileptic seizures. So what happens is, as we know, that when you low carb, or they were treating children that couldn't control their epilepsy, the body tends to take fats and they turn it into fatty acids, and that's what they were using to send those inhibitors to the brain. So what carbs do is they have glucose in your system, and what glucose does is that it goes into the brain, it fuels your brain activity. Carbs also fuel your muscles, and so what they were trying to do is bring your body, or to the kid's body, ketosis, so they wouldn't have so much glycogen running through their system causing these epileptic seizures, because those seizures are a neurological imbalance. So that's where the kind of keto diet came from. It was actually a lot of testing that they were doing to try to understand what were causing these seizures. And they found in those studies that about 50% there was a decrease in those seizures. So along comes Dr. Atkins in 1973 and said, hey, we can probably utilize this study to go ahead and transfer it into not anyone having seizures, but just regular overall health. So he put that in terms of the diet, and what made it kind of a loophole is that people are going to like what they like. So if you can tell somebody to eat that you can eat lobster, as much lobster as you want, as much steak as you want, as many eggs that you want, then they're going to be very receptive to that, because we don't want to feel like we're starving. We don't want to feel like that we're hungry. So your body goes into transfers in a keto diet. What they're looking for is that fat that you're taking in, those triglycerides, and they're transferring into fatty acids, and you're going into ketone bodies. So that means your body is actually going into a protective mode because it thinks you're sick. So that's what the whole ketosis thing is about. Your body is actually sick when you're going through that ketosis phase, because it's protecting itself, because you're not giving it carbs, you're not giving it glycogen, you're not fueling your body like you should normally do with regular carbs. So what carbs allow you to do is take that glycogen, fuel your muscles, fuel your brain. But when you go into ketosis, you're using the fat as an energy source. But the thing that your body is thinking, or you're trying to trick your body into doing, is thinking that you don't need carbs. And that's not the case at all. So Dr. Atkins wrote this diet up, and but realizing, like we said at the very beginning, that this diet was originally for, and look it up, it was for actually kids who were having epileptic seizures who couldn't really process that glycogen that was fueling that stem in their brain. So that's where you get the keto diet from. So now when you hear these keto diets and they're talking about all these different variations of things, but let's name the diets that basically bit off of keto, which is really the same thing. So if you ever heard of the Atkins diet, the paleo diet, the South Beach diet, the zone diet, the blood type diet, all of those are basically keto diets. I'll go over them again. The Atkins diet, the paleo diet, the South Beach diet, the zone diet, and the blood type diet. All of those are basically the same things. What they're telling you to do is have a high amount of fat, a pretty substantial amount of protein, and very, very low carbs. Now, I follow a guy and I read a lot of a guy named Dr. Campbell, T. Colin Campbell. He actually wrote the China study, and he's probably in his late 70s now. And what he did, and he really went into, kind of a hardcore study about overall health, vegetables, fruits, and, this keto diet of what actually the original Atkins diet. And he really learned to study. But let's go back. You're tricking your body into making yourself sick with the high protein and the high fat and low carbs. That's really not. I've read about 6 or 7 actual research academic journals that are really saying the same thing, that you're literally tricking your body to go into ketosis, which your body doesn't naturally do. So if your body really doesn't naturally go into ketosis, unless it doesn't have carbs, that has to happen over time. And it's never was supposed to be in a prolonged state. Your body never was supposed to be in a prolonged state. Like when we were more hunter-gatherers back in early civilization, what would end up happening is that you could go into ketosis because of the fat that you would have until you were able to get carbs from the winter, if they had to grow food and different things like that with those vegetables and things out there, that you could go into ketosis. But for people who have been on Atkins diet or the keto diet for years, you have completely wrecked your metabolism. You've completely wrecked it. And because most of people have this strange association with weight gain and carbs. And that's because a lot of research has been out there that's incorrect. It's really not, well, I shouldn't say research. There's been a lot of articles written about there that for some reason that carbs are bad, and the fact that you really can't lose weight if you take in a lot of carbs, which is not the case at all. So most people associating carbs with weight gain, that's incorrect. And going into the specifics, everyone wants to hear good news about their bad habits. So that's why it makes the keto diet so popular. Because if, like I said from the beginning, if you can eat lobster, if you can eat steak, if you can eat eggs, if you can eat all those things that are filling, that people like, then people aren't thinking that they're dieting in that necessary sense. So it's very important to kind of understand the keto diet was never ever meant to be long term, and the keto diet, like I said, was specifically made for a test study when kids who were having epileptic seizures, to stop those epileptic seizures because of what glucose or carbs would do to their brains as a neuron dysfunction. So it's very important to understand that. So with the keto diet, let's go into another section about that. You're going to put people into a situation where not only are you wrecking your metabolism, but all those fats that you're eating are clogging your arteries. They're causing your blood pressure to increase. Your body is having problems functioning because of the liver. Your body is having problems functioning because of there's so much kidney issues, because of gallbladder, kidney stones are another reason that you see people. And these are long-term studies. So of course you're initially going to lose weight simply because, of how the macros are set up, the fats, the proteins, and the carbs. Of course you're going to lose weight, but there's going to come a time where you're going to come to a screeching halt where your body is like, why am I in ketosis for so long? Simply because you're trying to lose weight and it's not healthy for you. And when we go into a little bit later about calories in versus calories out, you really kind of understand and kind of put those two together. But you have to read your journals. You have to read trends. That's what I really, really try to do, is be fair. And in order, let me get that question. Would you be able to fix the metabolism after it's wrecked? Yes, you're able to fix it by introducing carbs slowly back into your system. And we're going to talk about carbs a little bit more in detail. Great question. Carbs are not the enemy here. Carbs are not the enemy at all. Simple carbs, sugars, are of course going to be refined things, refined flour, white rice, those things that spike insulin and causing your pancreas to go in there and spike that insulin up is what is going to cause it. But if you introduce complex carbs, your brown rice, your sweet potatoes, all your vegetables, especially your dark green vegetables, you can definitely repair those effects from the keto diet. Good question. Please keep those questions coming. So we all know that the biggest lies in the world have a little bit of truth. And so we should cut down on carbs, correct? But like we said, sugar, white flour, candy, all of those carbs that the moment that you take them into your system, spike your blood sugar up. And that's what they do, because you got to realize they're extracted. So they're extracting white sugar from this natural base. That's why you hear processed foods. They're extracting not only the sugars, they're extracting different chemicals from the white rice. They have to bleach the rice. They have to put preservatives in there because white rice isn't natural. white flour isn't natural. It's an extraction. It's a you're actually pulling out all the nutrients, you're pulling out all the minerals, and it's so important for us to understand that if we're pulling out these things, that we're not getting what we're supposed to be getting in terms of the nutrition, what we're supposed to be getting in terms of the minerals, because now we've processed it out. And that's what processed food is. Whenever you hear the word processed food, it's taking it out of its natural state. That's the only thing processed food means. So you're hearing all these cool and fancy words. That's all processed food means, is you're taking it from its natural state, and then you're trying to increase its shelf life so you can put it on the shelf. That's why we're not so much eating food, but we're eating food products. So also going back to, we all like to eat, junk food. That there's nothing wrong with that, but 90 to 95% of our diet should definitely be coming from clean sources of energy, which are, your dark greens, your veggies, your fruits, all the things that we know to eat, but we want to say that we want to do what we want to do. And then we're going to go out and eat candy, eat sugars, eat these things that we like, but then it becomes a habit. And that habit is why, and I think I got that, I want to read that article and that stat correctly, that in 2030, if we don't stop this trend of obesity, by 2030, 51% of the world's population, according to Dr. Campbell, who I'm going to cite and list his references as well as his book, very big on references and referring people with their work, are saying that by 2030, 51% of the world's population will be obese. That's crazy. So, our result of what we have too is also, and going back to ketosis and what it goes, the low carb diet, of course, like we know, is going to make you sick over time, because your body in ketosis is a chemical reaction. That's what you're having, from the carbs. You lose your appetite. So is it natural really to lose your appetite? That's your body's mechanism for protecting itself. You do not need to lose your appetite when you're dieting. That's not healthy. You're trying to trick your brain, and your brain over time is going to say, okay, well, I'm not really hungry, but you should be hungry. Your metabolism starts to get slowed down. It starts to mess with your thyroid. And when it starts to mess with your thyroid, you really start to see those effects, those residual effects of, I can't lose any more weight on, the keto. I can't lose any more, because your body is in starvation mode. You've been putting it through ketosis for, months, sometimes years. And then we're not even talking about the effects of the keto diet and what it has on, like, hardening your arteries, the trouble that you have processing all that protein and all that fat through your kidneys, the really, really adverse effects of your liver, of what it has on there as well. So ketosis was never meant to be prolonged. And going back to that, it's also too, we got to think about that. You see vegans, hey, I'm vegan. Hey, I'm vegan. That's great. And you'll never hear me promote vegan or don't promote vegan or vegetarianism. But for me, what a lot of vegans fail to understand is that oil is still fat. So you have to understand, if oil is still fat, then you're getting your oil from, whether that be from a plant, whether it be olive oil, whether that be canola oil, whether that be any type of oil. Oil still is fat. So that's why vegans don't really understand that salt and fat are really going to still add to their weight, to their unhealthy ways, still stressing the liver, still stressing the kidneys, simply because they don't eat meat. But you can eat potato chips. You can eat potato chips and drink Coke and be all the vegan that you want to. But if you haven't really given up the oils, then you're really not understanding the full scope of living a healthy life and being healthy. So this is why people who are vegans, there's nothing wrong with it, not eating meat or not eating anything that comes from animal byproduct. But you also got to understand, if you don't take out the oil, then you're going to be just another unhealthy vegan, and you might as well eat meat if you're going for the health benefits. So not, dissuading anybody from being a vegan, but I'm just saying, if you do become vegan, make sure that you take into account the oil and the salt that you're taking into your system. So next thing is something simple that I want to understand is the density of calories. So fats have about you can have about 9 calories per gram in fat. You're going to have 4 calories in every 1 gram of protein. And you're also going to have 4 in carbohydrates as well. So as we can see, fat is a dense calorie. So you have to understand that people are taking in high amounts of fat. You're also taking in high amounts of calories. And if you ever think about it, that's why you can reduce your calories and fat. And it's a dramatic reduction because of the calories themselves. It's almost double the other ones. So once again, just to say that again, and please let me know if you have any questions on that. So carbs, there's 1 gram, and 1 gram of carb, you have 4 calories. In 1 gram of protein, you have 4 calories. But in 1 gram of fat, you have 9. So when you hear something being calorie dense or very high in fat, that's what you're getting. So you're automatically doubling your calories when you're eating a very, very high amount of fat. And I think that's very important for people to understand. So let's talk about calories in, calories out. Let me answer that question. So reducing carbohydrate intake is going to assist you in losing weight. But is that just the general public, or would you say something a little different depending on person's goal? So person's body type, there are body types. There's 3 types of bodies: endomorphic, ectomorphic, and mesomorphic. Endomorphic are, your people who have a very easy time putting on weight. We'll say that they thick, I'm from Georgia, so we'll say that they're thick. Ectomorphic, a little bit leaner. Ectomorphic, you have a little bit more definition. You're defined. Mesomorphic has the ability to combine the two, but there are mesomorphs with ectomorphic tendencies, and there's mesomorphic with endomorphic tendencies. So it really just depends on that. Reducing your carbohydrate intake does not necessarily assist you in losing weight, but it definitely depends on your body type. Some people have built over time where they're insulin resistant. And what happens is they can eat carbs, and those low carbs really don't, because over time they've kind of hurt their metabolism, hurt their thyroid, so they become insulin resistant over time, and it's really hard for them to lose weight. So you got to introduce a lot of fibrous things into their diet. You got to enter a lot of things also that help them digest their food, which is, probiotics, bacteria that's lost also too when your arteries are hardened and things like that come from a keto diet. Got another question. What about your people on a minimum amount of money socioeconomics do to be healthy food? Great question. So people think, and there's been studies done on this, that fresh food is very, very difficult for you to get a hold of and is expensive. Now, what I do have to say about that is that eating correctly is going to cost a little bit more in terms of the amount of food that you have to buy, because you want fresh food. You want to have everything, that is, 3 or 4 days shelf life. Your food should not be living as long as you are. Some food, some things are, literally, you can keep on there for a year. A year? Really? Something can stay at room temperature for a year without going bad. What are they putting in that? What are preservatives? What things are they really putting in there in order for them to preserve that? So if you go to places, like farmers markets, things like that, there's a lot of things. There's something Vanessa found on a website that actually ships fruits and vegetables to your door at a very minimal price, because they're not the perfect vegetable. I'll get her to get information on that and what's it called. But there's so many ways, from farmers markets to smaller venues to things that people are doing inside their community gardens. There's ways for the socioeconomic status to really be not a key factor there, because cheap food, sugary foods, mass production is cheap because it's processed and it's mass production. But when you're buying that and comparing to how full you'll be from other meals, you're taking those meals, 3 or 4 meals or so, and then you're really spreading those meals out. You'll really find that I think it's about I think the study said a 7 to 12% difference in cost in the food of what you're having from a really, really healthy menu option food to buying those other processed foods, because you're also paying for the process. You're paying for the manufacturing. You're paying for all those other things, those additives, those things that you can't even pronounce. Some of that stuff, if you look in there, is stuff to kill your lawn. So if you can turn around your food label and read everything on there, you probably should be eating. If you have to Google some of the chemicals that are preserved inside of those things that you're eating that have no known study, because let me tell you something about the FDA. All FDA studies are given to them for assessment by companies. All FDA studies. And I know that may be a huge one out there that people don't understand. So the FDA doesn't have scientists and they go along and they say, hey, we're a bunch of, PhD doctors. We're going to go break this down and study this. The companies give the FDA those studies, and from those studies, the FDA makes their conclusions, which I'm sure, we know how money works. Hand over. That's why you see dairy, which is known to cause mucus and inflammation. I've even reduced my wife's meat intake, and from her inflammatory arthritis that happened, it's completely gone just because of the meat reduction that we've had. So what you see in your food charts wasn't necessarily decided on by scientists, but it's decided on by lobbyists and people like that in order for you to try to get more dairy, which we know isn't great for you, to eat more meat, which we know isn't great for you. And what these things come out is now having a keto diet that takes all those attributes in there and then is doing nothing but hardening your arteries, making your kidneys and liver work overtime, and increasing your blood pressure. So those are the things. Oh, thanks. She said it's called the Misfits. Is where you can go ahead and get your vegetables, your fruits, things like that, directly from the farmer's market. But just because of the fact they don't look a certain way, you can save a good price. So your advice is unequivocally positive, but everyone doesn't have that. So when you say everyone doesn't have the economical means to eat healthy, so what do you mean when you say that? Because if you're buying for food, for example, $30, $40, $50 worth of food, that $30, $40, $50 usually lasts longer. And we'll get on that in a second, than it would if you just bought processed junk food. So let me explain something to you as well, because people don't really understand this. So the way your brain works, when you're eating food, right, and that food is going down into your stomach has sensors and receptors that are sitting inside your stomach to let you know it's full. It's called satiety. So that satiety that you feel, that feeling of being full, it's a great feeling. But what happens is when you have empty, and this goes into our calories in, calories out, when you have a bunch of sugar, those receptors aren't fed. For example, if you eat a muffin, right? You eat that muffin and all of a sudden it's sugar. So it really doesn't have any nutritional value. Your stomach's not recognizing any fiber. Your stomach is not recognizing any minerals. Your stomach is not recognizing any really water from it. So it's not full. But your brain is telling you, man, that muffin I ate, a 400 or 500 calorie muffin, I should be full. Your stomach is like telling you, I'm not full. So what your stomach, and the battle between your stomach and your brain, 99.9 times out of 100, your brain is going to actually lose. Your stomach is going to win, and you're going to go ahead and get that second muffin. So that second muffin that you're going to get now, maybe it fills you up, maybe you get a third, but what's happening is your body is trying to process something that is already processed. So you're eating, instead of eating a leafy green, a vegetable, where it's fibrous, where it has carrots, where it has everything in there, for example, a carrot, lettuce, cucumbers, those things like that. It has water in it, so it has a sensor there, and then it also has fiber in it, so it's a sensor there. So then your brain understands that after you eat these things that you are full. But when sugar is involved, since sugar has no nutritional value whatsoever, you're not getting anything from it. What happens is it goes straight into your bloodstream and your body is still hungry. So you're like, man, I just had, 2 donuts. Well, your stomach's not recognizing, your brain does, that you've eaten 2 donuts, but your stomach does not understand that you've just had 2 donuts because those receptors aren't being full. So another thing too is that when your body releases insulin, the chemical hormone to tell your brain is called leptin. So leptin is releasing, your brain goes to your brain says, all right, you know what? I am full. What blocks leptin? Insulin. Insulin blocks leptin. So now you're looking in the face where it's like, oh man, I'm still hungry. Yeah, because the leptin, the chemical hormone to tell your brain you're full, is blocked by insulin. What's insulin? Sugar. So that donut, that muffin, that cookie that you've eaten that's giving you no nutritional substance, is now not telling your stomach that you're still hungry. So that's why you can eat 4 or 5 cookies, 4 or 5 donuts, and finally that satiety feeling, that fullness feeling after you eat those, after your body has finally processed the fact that you're full. So that's that was a big thing that needed to be explained with calories in, calories out. I hear it all the time, and it's released in your brain, and that's what blocks the insulin. So what comes in with like the keto diet to bring it, kind of full circle, because I want to, have some time for questions. I don't want to make it too long, but you can't cherry pick studies. You know what I mean? Because what you're going to do, that's like if a person, comes out with a study and says smoking isn't that bad for you, and then and then I can cherry pick information that kind of gives a whole presentation. I give a whole presentation that smoking isn't bad for you. What does the larger body say? The larger body of evidence tells you that smoking is bad for you. So you can't cherry pick information. That's what the keto diet is literally doing. You're cherry picking ketosis. You're cherry picking the fact that your body has a mechanism you're making yourself sick to lose weight. That's what keto diet is doing. You're going into ketosis, which isn't natural, because if it was natural, we'd be in ketosis all the time. You're forcing your body now to change those fats into fatty acids and ketosis bodies, and those things are now floating around up to your brain, telling you to lose your appetite. So if your brain is telling you to now lose your appetite, now you're at a point where it's like, all right, well, I can go on ketosis forever. And that's a false sense of energy now, because now you're messing with your thyroid, now you're messing with your metabolism. And it goes back to the study of why ketosis was ever brought into there. And that was studies in the 60s and the 50s and 60s to make people make children who were having refractive epileptic seizures to use something else as an energy source besides glycogen, which you're getting from carbohydrates. So it does work in the sense of what it does to your brain receptors and calming them down for the spinning of the carbohydrates. But no one is telling people to do this for 3, 4, 5 years forever. You're telling your body to naturally be sick. And that's something that we should never do. So calories in versus calories out. So you're running on the treadmill. You think you're burning off the calories. And that's just not effective. That's not how calorie in, calorie out works. You can burn off the calories, but you cannot burn off the effects of the calories. So you've eaten a big cheeseburger from Burger King. You've had a big Coke, and you have fries. You have to literally run from a Whopper meal 13 miles. I don't know too many people. I have some athletes that are triathletes, and I have some athletes on Team Best Fit that are marathon runners. But, they don't do that every day. And just that one meal, they have to run 13 miles in order for them to burn that off. But what people have to understand is that the residual effects from you burning those things off has already happened. Your heart rate is already elevated. Your hypertension is already elevated. Your arteries are being clogged and getting more narrow. So the more fats that are going to deposit, the more closed those arteries gets, leading to heart attacks, leading to heart disease, leading to fatty livers, leading to a plethora of other things. So you just think, oh man, I can eat what I want, and then I can go ahead and burn it off, but you're already putting those effects of those saturated fats into your body. So that's what's huge to really understand. Also, going into, those microbiome effects, which is like the insulin spike, hardening of the arteries like we talked about. But the big thing is inflammation. Sugar and fats cause you to become very, very inflamed. That's why a lot of cancer research now, and I have to dig more into these studies as we go on, of linking that sugar, that cancer, sugar, depression, because your body is able to process all that sugar. And sugar also, when it has overage, will turn into fat. So we know it has 3,500 kilojoules in 1 pound of fat. So you got to burn 3,500 calories for 1 pound of fat. 3,500 calories for 1 pound. So if you're thinking about that and you're over time and you're continually eating these fat and these sugary things, that's why you steady decline, steady inclination of going up in weight. So that's what ends up happening. And it also too comes from our sedentary lifestyle. I love what Dr. Campbell says here, and I will quote this and quote this and quote this. Chairs are our new cigarettes. Literally. chairs are killing us. We work in confined spaces, we work in cubicles, we're not moving, we're not doing anything that we need to be doing. And what happens is that we're going around, and as humans, God made us to move. So if we have to move and we have to move around, we're not doing that anymore. So for us to be the chairs that do cigarettes, we're not. So even in our exercise, I'm having to learn today over these years that I have to get up every hour and at least walk around for 5 or 6 minutes after using, because I drink so much water anyway. But bathroom wise is something that, you got to get up, you got to move around, you got to go and do a lot of different things, in order to keep yourself active, because like I said, chairs are the new cigarette. So, we got to make sure that we're active. Calories in, calories out are not the same thing. And, we have to understand, what we're doing to our bodies. And that's increasing our resting calories, making sure that we're walking around, not utilizing diet supplements in order for us, like ephedrine. And we saw the things in the studies that came out years back when it's doing things to your heart. Just a holistic, I'm not promoting, like I said, only thing I will is veganism or vegetarian. Only thing I'm promoting is whole foods and plant-based things. That's really it. I'm not preaching, to, not eat meat, to eat meat, but those things work for, my family, in terms of, eating, smaller portions of meat, increasing our veggies, and, really just eating whole foods. And there's no medical journals that I've read that say anything about diet supplements. And I read like peer-reviewed journal articles, and because I understand the science, I understand how to break them down, and there's nothing saying that diet supplements work. So throw those diet supplements away. They're really either one, a placebo effect, because you don't know what's really in there, because none of that's checked out. None of the stuff in the supplement world has to be approved. And two, you can get everything that you need from going through vegetables, even if you can't get, and I'll be honest, there's a lot of things for me, like, because out of the course of the day that I can't get all my vegetables in. So what do? I juice the rest of them that I can't get. So I'll put kale and cucumbers and other different things and variety of other different things inside of a juicer and get my necessary things. It's not processed. I'm getting the juice directly, and it's a lot easier for me. So there's things to work around that you can do to get into your diet. So and those supplements are not going to fix the problem. They're just really not. You're really just kind of putting a Band-Aid over there. I'll leave you with this analogy. You can't go through, prepare for your retirement, 40 years that you're looking at retiring in 40 years, and you don't save a penny. You're spending more than you make. You're doing all these things, against what it would be to save. It's the same thing with your diet. You've been doing this for 30 and 40 years and expect to have health. It really doesn't make sense. So your body, because you take a pill, does not necessarily understand what that pill is even doing or what's inside the pill. If someone can sit here and tell me exactly what's inside, diet pills that help you lose weight, maybe they're shedding water weight, maybe they're messing with your thyroid, maybe they're messing with your metabolism. There's not really a lot of studies. But what you have to do is to learn that with the proper carbs, you eat till you're full. You go back to that word that we learned tonight, which is satiety, and learning when you're full and not letting leptin, that hormone in your body, really elevate to your brain to tell your brain that you're full. But if you're eating sugary things, if you're eating things that really, really don't have any nutritional value, then the leptin that goes on is going to be blocked by the insulin, and the insulin is going to win, and you're going to have that third or fourth donut because you're not full. Your brain is telling you you're full, but your stomach is full. So just to kind of wrap up, because I wanted to keep it 30 minutes or so and leave some time for questions. The thing is that at this point, we have to understand keto diet, and the reason it was to go back to the epileptic seizures of children and reducing those because of the proponent's effect of glycogen that goes and powers the muscles and powers the brain. So they wanted to use another source that wasn't so constrictive to a neurological application to what the refractive seizures were having. So that's the reason why keto came about. Dr. Atkins in 1973, I believe, goes in and says, we need to utilize this, and wrote a study that was never, ever founded to be for long term. So people who have been on ketosis for 3, 4, or 5 years, good luck with repairing your metabolism. It can happen, but now you went to a place where your metabolism, your thyroid, and a lot of other things are now really, really hurting because of the fact that you are putting, a high fat, because the fat you eat is the fat you wear. It's really that simple. The fat you eat is the fat you wear. So, whether that fat is coming from oil, whether that fat is coming from fish, whether that fat is coming from meat, I mean, anything, the fat you eat is the fat you wear. So, a whole food plant based diet allows you to still have meat, but in a very limited amount, because there's no sense of you taking in 200 or 300 grams of protein. Your body can't absorb that. Protein synthesis doesn't even know what to do inside your body with that much protein. You're usually peed out, and it causes a lot of kidney, liver, and gallbladder issues because of that. And the biggest thing is inflammation from sugar and inflammation from meat. So calorie in versus calorie out, to end that notion, is not the same. Calorie are need things you don't want to stay away. You want to stay away from things that are calorie dense, which are fats. The calories that you find in protein, the calories that you find in carbohydrates are what you want to go with, and stay away from simple carbohydrates. There's nothing wrong, and I hear this all the time. Well, there's sugar in grapes. There's sugar in plums. There's sugar in apples. Yes, natural sugar. Your body knows what to do with that. That's why people who are going on diabetic can eat fruits, because of the suppression of natural sugar, the secretion of sugar. Now your insulin in your system knows what to do, and you don't have to worry. But when you come from an extraction or refined sugar, and when that sugar is very, very refined, now your body doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know satiety. Those leptin levels are blocked. Those insulin things rise, and you become inflamed. That's one of the things dairy does. That's one of the things that sugar does, is inflammation. So a lot of people who have arthritis are like, man, I have arthritis, and it's inflammatory arthritis, because your joints and your ligaments and your tendons are inflamed. So what's very important here is to understand what happens when your body goes through inflammation, what happens when your body, and calorie in versus calorie out is not the same. All calories, as we learned tonight, are not created equal. And throw the keto diet away. It's really making you sick. There's been studies. Please go out there and do the research for yourself. Please read the fact that Dr. Atkins was not backed up by any medical journals. And like I said, you can cherry pick information all day, but read the comprehensive body of knowledge, not just go into the fact of, oh man, I read a journal from Men's Health. Who is that writing it? Like, oh, I've read something in another, book. Who's writing it? Are these people peer reviewed? And that's what I got my tail kicked as a PhD candidate, because I would bring resources, and my doctor, is this peer reviewed? Has anyone else, tested this data? Because at the end of the day, I can be Joe Smo and say anything that I want to say and write an article about it and be dead wrong, and people accept it as fact, because people want to get those feelings of, oh man, keto, I can eat lobster, I can eat egg, I can eat as much chicken, I can eat as much fat as I want to. But what are those residual effects? So think about what your residual effects are, and I'll leave the open for about 5 minutes of questions. And thanks everybody for joining me. I'll be doing this, and please leave comments. Please leave topics that you want me to research. I know the first two were hot and heavy, which were what are calorie in and what is calorie out. All calories equal, and people wanted me to talk about keto, but I would love to research anything. If I don't know it, I'll be the first to tell you I don't know it. I need to study a little bit more. But these are the topics I was very comfortable with speaking on, and it just makes us all better. At the end of the day, I'm all about health. I'm not about looking a certain way. Now, I love the fact of bodybuilding and what it's done for me and my career, but at the same time, too, more so than anything else, I want to be strong and I want to be healthy, and that's the most important thing. So just dispelling all the bad information that's out there, that's all I'm here to do, not make you go left or right. Research for yourself, and let's just all get healthy together. Does anybody have any questions? I'll leave it for 2 or 3 minutes for questions, and we'll rock with it from there. And please leave comments of what you like, what you want to see me talk about. We'll try to do this every other week, or maybe we make it every week, depending on the topics and how people, want to do this. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. We had a great crowd. I try to say 30 minutes, but I'm very passionate about this and wanted to get as much information as I can. So if I don't have any questions, I'll stick around for another minute. Thanks, everybody, for joining me, and I really, really appreciate it. All right. Well, I don't see any questions, so please, everybody, leave your comments, review it, and let's just get healthy together. That's the biggest thing. We want to live. I always hear that terminology. We all got to die one day, but we all want to feel like we've got to die every day? So let's just get to a point of where we feel better. One question: do you think one diet style would be more beneficial for bodybuilding or powerlifting? I don't believe in necessarily a diet style. Particularly, what I do believe is in a macronutrient base that's giving you enough calories to combat your resting metabolic rate. So that's how all we're doing when I'm preparing, for a show, or I'm preparing all my athletes for a show. I'm looking at what body type they are, their resting metabolic rate, and how to, with exercise included, utilize coming down a pound and a half every week. So there's not a particular style that I use. More so, are they, how are they coming to me? Calories, are they insulin resistant? Are there things I need to understand about how they break carbs down? How long have they been dieting a certain way? I've had to fix a lot of diets for a lot of different athletes who don't even know why they're eating and taking. I remember one person came to me, had 13 different supplements that they were taking, and I'm like, just why? And they didn't even know why. So we stopped everything. And, you're going to have to explain to me why you're taking something, because I'm going to definitely explain to you. Another question: do you think there is a diet that is more beneficial for putting on size? Actually, it depends on the body type, whether you be endomorphic, ectomorphic, or mesomorphic. It really depends on that. The ectomorphic can get away, with eating a little bit more calories simply because their metabolism is humming. Usually they have no problem with processing insulin. They're not insulin resistant at all. Usually they're leptin levels, or the hormone that's released to tell you that you're full, is a little bit more prolonged than the endomorph. And endomorph is going to have the ability to put on that muscle, but also put on a subsidiary amount of fat because of triglycerides and the way it breaks down in their body, and those things like that. So there is not a specific diet for putting on size per se, but there is a diet of increasing calories, making sure you're taking in the right calories and using the right carbohydrates, which is going to be that glycogen broken down into glucose going into your system. That's what you're going to be want to use to put on that size. And that doesn't come from simple carbs. It needs to come from complex carbs that you're going to get from greens. So remember, vegetables are carbohydrates as well. People always, forget about that fact, but utilizing those vegetables, utilizing those, grains, those legumes, those things like that in order to put on size. Protein doesn't put on size. Carbs put on size. Another question: do you think the type of diet would put on a different type of muscle or density size? That's the dexterity of muscle. And when we talk about density, the dexterity of muscle is full of, glycogen is going to be that ticket there, because that's what there's, the glycogen goes into your stream. So you got ectoskeletal glycogen and you got muscular glycogen. So when muscular glycogen is full in your system, that's what gives you that pump, that real pumped up look. Ectoskeletal glycogen is just the residual that flows over from that muscular glycogen. So, there's not a certain diet that I would say, but there's carbs that definitely do that. That's why it shows you see people taking a lot of simple carbs into effect. When they take those simple carbs, it's spiking their insulin, and that insulin is getting that glycogen to get that muscle full and dense. But, there, as far as density of size, I'd say green vegetables, because of the iron, the potassium, the vitamins that you're in there. The only vitamins that the body doesn't produce is B12 that you can't get from plants is B12 and vitamin D, which you get from the sun. Everything else is naturally produced by plants, and you can get those, and that's actually caused dexterity in the muscle. There's scientific research to say that it's not necessarily the protein that's giving you that, but it's the carbs. Question: what do you think of term bulking leads to poor nutritional decisions? Bulking. Everybody knows I hate that word. That's been on my team, and the reason I say that is because bulking is the absolute gateway into eating what you want. Triglycerides are fat. I think I said it earlier. Fat that you eat is the fat that you wear. So these people in the off season that are gaining 50, 60, 70 pounds, average person gains about 2 to 3 pounds of muscle per year. So you're just going to have to take that 60, 70 pounds off again all in the name of bulking. You can't breathe, you can't run, you don't feel well. Usually I have all of my athletes stay about 20 pounds off their stage weight, simply because you're able to be full of carbs, full of energy when you're training. But anything over that, and my ladies, I usually have them 10 to 12 pounds, just because the anatomy of a female and male are different. But I usually have all my athletes stay within that frame, that time period. Of about 10 to 12, or that wait time is about 10 to 12, and then about 20 pounds. That's what I do. So bulking is absolutely, a joke. You can put on size, but at that 20-pound mark, after that, it's not like you're any more anabolic. You actually turn catabolic because you have a high level of body fat. I think that's all the questions for now. Well, you guys have been great. I just went 20 minutes over, but maybe I should align this and let me know if I should go an hour, because there was a lot of questions, a lot of participation. I'm very humbled. Everybody tuned in for sure. But at the end of the day, I just want to make everybody, number one, healthy. I'm in definitely a sport in bodybuilding, that, requires you to be healthy, but also to take your body fat levels to the extreme. And you are not supposed to stay that way. You are not supposed to, be, 4, 5, 6% body fat lean all year round. It's just not natural. It's not healthy. So definitely that's why I say 20 pounds over. But we got to do it the healthy way. That means no crazy supplementation. That means no diet pills. If you ever bring to me diet pills, I'm going to throw them in the trash and tell you wasted your money. I probably throw them down the toilet like it's drugs. So another question, do you believe there's a limit to the size of a natural? Absolutely. Yes, there's a size absolutely a natural guy can get to. Now they're going to grow muscle, but they're going to grow it at a rate that a natural athlete is just going to grow it. And that is a great year of natural muscle is 2 to 3 pounds a year. And then I think there's going to get to a point where your body just over time, and because of age, is less resistant to put on new muscle, and you're dealing with mature muscle. And that's when you'll hear that. You're welcome, Trav. No problem. I'm glad you really enjoyed it. So like you said, earlier, please put your comments below, any other questions that you have. I'm glad so many people joined in. And like I said, if we need to do this once a week or once every other week, I'm just here to dispel information. I encourage everyone to research for themselves. I'll be here to be a sounding board for research. That's all I do. Most of the day is just try to read something to enhance our knowledge of health, wellness overall. So thank you guys, and have a good night, and hope to talk to you soon. Share this video, and please list more topics that you would like to discuss. Peace.